Hi, I'm Eva from China. I wasn't surprised by the outcome of this round of negotiations between China and the US. In fact, I mentioned in my previous video that a breakthrough was likely. The video wasn't well received on YouTube though, for a reason I don't understand. I even got haters for that. Anyway, what did surprise me was President Trump's speech after the talks. As expected, he opened with the usual self-congratulatory remarks. That part I will skip. What really caught my attention was one particular statement. He said the most important goal of this negotiation wasn't tariffs.
The best part of the deal was that we opened up China. China agreed to open itself up to American business to go in, fully open China, and they canceled it the last day.
This suggests that China had initially agreed to fully open its market, but backed out at the last minute. He followed up with a lot of diplomatic vagueness, but the overall message seemed to be talks about opening will continue. It will take time, but he's confident a deal can be reached. Then he even mentioned unification and peace. Some media interpreted this as a willingness to support unification regarding the Taiwan issue in exchange for market access. Well, personally, I think in context, unification here is more likely echoing the unity he mentioned earlier, suggesting a broader vision of global harmony on the US-China cooperation, rather than anything territorial. Then again, knowing President Trump's style, it's possible China never fully agreed to open up, instead of canceling in the last minute. It may have been just a discussion point, but since this topic's on the table, it won't be easily off. I can't help but imagine what this opening might look like. Let's not dwell too much on the idea of two sides joining hands. After all, the relationship between the world's number one and number two economies is bound to be complex and competitive. Huawei will likely remain banned and the high tariffs on strategic sectors will probably stay. But the prospect of opening up, isn't that exciting? Does it mean Google, Facebook, and YouTube might be allowed in? Will capital be able to move freely in and out of China? Okay, I'm kidding. It's still a long way off, but even a single meaningful move would be something to look forward to right now. I firmly believe that opening up is ultimately beneficial for China itself. Countries evolve the way companies and individuals do. Opening up inevitably brings challenges, not just competition, but ideological clashes and the management headaches. But if you are strong enough, you come out even stronger. I don't think anyone would argue that China isn't strong enough now to handle those challenges. In the short term, opening up, just as President Trump suggested, and I agree, would boost consumption and employment in China quickly and tangibly. Many domestic services and products in China feel too similar, and when it comes to premium options, they often don't seem worth the price. Quite many people aren't unwilling to spend. They just feel they can't get the quality or service they want. The market is hungry for fresh blood. So whether you look at it short-term or long-term, opening up appears to be the best path forward. Some people may ask, after decades of reform and opening up, how could China not be open enough already? And yes, compared to 40 years ago, a lot has changed, but there are still 104 restrictions on foreign capital. Even though that number has been gradually decreasing, manufacturing is now fully open, including allowing foreign ownership in sectors like automotive, including EVs. Limits on foreign equity in finance and telecom have also been lifted. The message is clear. The government is committed to continuing down this path, but the market response doesn't seem enthusiastic. Official data is no longer being released, so we can only rely on public perception. From my own experience, more foreign companies are pulling out than coming in. The vacancy rate in high-end office buildings in big cities is still rising. So my assessment is that the policy hasn't achieved its intended effect. There are many reasons for that. The lengthy and strict lockdown during COVID, facing fierce competition from domestic companies, overnight change of policies, etc. Even beyond formal policies, there are invisible barriers that make things harder on a practical level. especially for small and medium companies. For instance, a Chinese person who wants to set up a company and open a bank account in the US can do the entire process remotely from any corner in China, as long as there's internet. You can use a registered agent's address for your business entity, and numerous banks offer tailored services for cross-border or small businesses. Where there's a demand, there's a solution. But in China, just opening a bank account can be very discouraging. Every banks are required by the government to conduct on-site inspections. The legal representative must be physically present, and you must put up a company sign on the wall for them to take photos of as a proof that you are doing real business. Pure formalism. There are also strict limitations on company-to-personal fund transfers. Some banks even freeze your account if you log in from a different city, no matter how many times you've explained. The hidden and upfront costs are significant. It's tough enough for locals, let alone foreigners, to deal with this process, especially considering the limited English proficiency in many public services. With the rise of AI, we are entering an era where single-person companies will thrive. People can now run businesses entirely from home on their own. It's likely that some of the most brilliant and creative ideas in the future will come from these individuals. Our policies need to evolve to support these small, often home-based ventures, whether they are started by locals or foreigners. But to top all these barriers above, the biggest pain point of all, I think, is capital outflow restrictions. Any attempt to move money out of the country requires a cumbersome approval process, detailed documentation, and lots of explanations. It's a bit ironic that one needs to explain why one wants to transfer money to his or her own account. Beyond the inefficiency, it creates a sense of insecurity. Will my money get blocked just because of something I said or did that upset some authority by accident? Believe me, this fear is common among expats doing business here. Maybe someday I will invite a foreign friend to talk about this on my channel. Over the past 40 years, China's domestic brands have risen by carefully balancing openness and protection, which was a huge success. But the second half will be drastically harder. For one, external pressure is intensifying, especially from the US. Second, there aren't many sectors left to open anyway. Military, energy, and strategic resources are off limits. What remains, healthcare, pharmaceuticals, payments, media, and education are all highly sensitive. At this stage, it's unlikely that any single policy change will drastically boost confidence, as there isn't much room for sweeping reforms. But frequent, incremental, and practical adjustments might be the key to real breakthroughs. All in all, let's stay cautiously hopeful.